Welcome back, Luchadors, and tonight, September 19th, we are celebrating my birthday, and we are going to take a look at one of my all-time favorite video game brands. I'm talking about Castlevania. Luchadors, I need you to rally behind me. We're teaming up with Simon Belmont and Trevor Belmont and Leon Belmont, and we're taking on the deepest, darkest parts of Transylvania. We're gonna break the teeth out of Dracula's mouth. We're gonna rip Frankenstein's monster back apart the way he was. We're gonna drown the merman, and we're gonna shave the werewolf's ass. So tag yourselves in, and let's take on the nerdy and dirty.
Christmas morning in 1987. I tear the gift wrap off a small box and marveled at what I saw. Staring back at me was an image that would symbolize decades of challenges, beautiful art and music, and wicked fun, with emphasis on wicked. It was the original Castlevania, and this image now stares at everyone who enters my home. The cover was a little strange to me at first. During my formative years, my peers were into fast cars and G.I. Joes, while I was more into fantasy and monsters, and even then I was a stickler for accuracy. Is that Dracula on the cover? Okay, well then why the fuck am I playing Conan the Barbarian instead of Van Helsing, and what the fuck am I gonna do with a whip? Within minutes of pressing start, I was given only one answer to my questions. Shut the fuck up and keep playing. By Christmas, Castlevania was already out for a little while, but the kids at school weren't playing it while Nintendo Fun Club News wasn't talking about it. I couldn't figure out why, because it was nothing like anything I'd ever seen on Nintendo before. There was nothing cheerful or cartoony about it. It was dark, it was dangerous, it was violent, and it was beautiful. Movie monsters were coming to life in a challenging game that was loaded with eerie, artful backgrounds and exciting music. It was a masterpiece that brought you to a faraway land and placed you on a mission in which failure truly felt like it meant death. Konami took pieces from fiction, fantasy, and horror, and like Dr. Frankenstein, they created something incredible and unique. You weren't playing as Van Helsing in the 19th century, you were playing as Simon Belmont in the Middle Ages. You weren't using a sword or a wooden stake, you were using an Indiana Jones whip, which upgraded to something a little more badass. The monsters you knew were all living in a castle inspired by the Hammer horrors, and the lord of this manor was Dracula, who turned into Godzilla before the battle was finally over. All these borrowed ideas, and from them, Castlevania became its own original universe, and it would only expand. Did I mention it being challenging? I turned 42 years old today, and after 30 years, I only just beat this fucking game 2 weeks ago. No Konami code is going to save you here, and if your jumps and attacks aren't timed perfectly, you're just not going to make it. You can have fun with it for sure, but if you want to beat it, you need to play like a pro. Or you can do what I did, and use a million quick saves on the Castlevania Anniversary Collection, which I have on PS4. In 1988, Castlevania 2 haunted our minds and homes. It's everyone's least favorite title in the series, meanwhile it's way before its time. It had the same side-scrolling action we enjoyed in the original, only now, you were visiting towns and interacting with scared citizens, some of which had information or items that helped you along. You had to get that all in before sundown, as the game's most memorable feature was the annoying timer that changed the landscape from day to night. It made the monsters tougher to beat, while the peasants you were protecting wasted no time leaving your ass for dead. Like the original, this sequel was challenging, but for different reasons, because if you didn't have the reference material, you were lost. Whether you were using the instructions that came with the game, or using the Nintendo Power issue that broke it all down with maps and tips, you needed something to tell you what these magical items did for Simon, because the American version of Castlevania 2 is also remembered for its horrible Japanese to English translations. Yes, there were misspellings and grammatical errors, but the real crime was the limited space within the word bubbles, making helpful hints brief and too cryptic for most players to work with. Even after all this, and while we're enjoying remakes of famous 90s games, I'd argue that Castlevania 2 ought to be the one we enjoy next, because it had something that the NES just wasn't capable of producing. Don't think so? Okay, then go play Breath of the Wild and tell me how much fun you had, because it's practically the same game. It's played in an open world, explored in real time, with several mysteries and challenges that enhance your experience. Castlevania 3 did away with all of that, but still aimed to be different, so a tag team function was added, and this time you're in a different story playing as a different Belmont. In this game, the people of Transylvania are just as afraid of the Belmonts as they are the monsters, and you assume the role of Simon's ancestor Trevor. As Trevor, you work your way to Dracula's castle, but you have several different paths to choose from, and each of them will pair you up with a new character. Depending on where you go, you'll meet Grant the Pirate, Sypha the Magician, or everyone's favorite, Alucard, son of Dracula. Each of them have a unique ability that helps you overcome the game's challenges, and all you need to do is tag them in to use them. This new feature, combined with yet another powerful collection of background music, made Castlevania 3 a heavy favorite among fans. Shortly after, the Super Nintendo would be on its way, and Konami had the next Castlevania title ready to supplement its debut. Behold, Super Castlevania 4, which isn't just my favorite Castlevania game, but also my favorite game on the Super Nintendo altogether. It brought us back full circle and told us the story of Castlevania as it was originally intended, with more levels, more monsters, a fresh suit of armor for Simon, and a whip that finally felt and worked like an actual fucking whip. Simon now had a full range of motion to defend himself, and with Konami developers being such big fans of Indiana Jones, Simon's whip now helps you traverse through certain obstacles. On paper, it all sounds pretty basic and boring, but as they say, a picture is worth 1,000 words. Despite it being one of the earliest releases on the Super Nintendo, Super Castlevania 4 flexed every single muscle the console had, giving you beautiful graphics, smooth gameplay, and a Hollywood-caliber soundtrack that synthesizes instrumentals better than anything else I've ever heard on a 16-bit system. If anything, the music is the best part, as each piece seems perfectly suited for the area it's chosen for, and it commands the player's emotions, getting you excited, cautious, or making you feel like you've accomplished something larger than life. We will not talk about Rondo of Blood on this program. Instead, we'll talk about its follow-up, Symphony of the Night, which was the first Castlevania released on the PlayStation, and in it, players become more familiar with Alucard while the Belmonts take the night off. It's commonly known as Metroidvania, as it has many similarities to Super Metroid. Was that supposed to be an insult? Okay, well you'll have to try a little bit harder, because I'll play this over Metroid any fucking day. Symphony of the Night gave Castlevania the advantage of CD quality sound, making its background music more explosive, enchanting, and addicting than any other game in the series. And if that didn't inspire you to keep playing, fear not. Symphony of the Night is overflowing with puzzles, buried treasures, helpful familiars, and I'll remind you that you're playing as Dracula's son, so you're heading into this quest with kick-ass vampire powers that work so well that you feel like you're fucking cheating. Oh, and there are Easter eggs. If you have the original PlayStation game like I do, and if you put the disc in a CD player, Alucard will tell you how much of a dumbass you are. The Castlevania series has been thrilling players for over 30 years, and now it uses its popular Netflix series to remind us how enchanted we truly are. With each new game that hits the shelves, Konami works harder to either expand an idea that worked before, or give you an entirely new story to sink your teeth into. It's not like the Super Mario Bros. Games where you're dealing with the same shit and a different brand of toilet paper to wipe your ass with. It's always getting bigger and better, darker and more mysterious, and very rarely do you come across a title that isn't worth remembering. With that said, it gives me great pride and pleasure to name the Castlevania brand as the first entrant in the Lucha Review Hall of Fame. For over 3 decades, it's proven that hunting monsters was more exciting than collecting coins or driving cars, and it allowed horror games to grow and evolve with players around the world. And that'll do it for tonight's main event on Lucha Review. What was your favorite Castlevania game? Feel free to plant your flag and leave a comment. Rest of YouTube probably won't give a shit, but I do. And it really is my birthday today, so please, my fellow luchadors, have some mercy on my soul, and please like and share. And more importantly, pour yourself a stiff drink tonight. Mask is optional. Thank you again for tagging in. Have a great night.